He did have a late start, by the way, getting to the United Kingdom due to an emergency meeting that NATO leaders called after the president's blunt demands that countries increase the percentage of GDP on defense spending. So the goal, which 8 countries apparently will reach this year, 5 have already reached it, was set at 2%, and that was back in 2014. Well, yesterday, the president floated 4%. It should be a hike to 4%. So can he claim victory today? We want to bring in former National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney and Foundation for Defense of Democracy Senior Counselor John Hanna. John, at the close of the NATO meeting, all members, including the U.S., restated the 2% commitment. And on the surface, that's not a win. It's just status quo. But was there a more subtle victory that the president can claim that isn't so obvious?
Oh, I certainly think the president can claim real victory here. For the first time in a very long time, all the NATO members are increasing their defense budgets. It's clear that the president's pressure has pushed them to accelerate the timetables for getting to 2%. So I think this is almost all due to President Trump, and this is a place where he really does deserve tremendous credit. It is a victory for him.
A lot of people were saying, well, in the past, other presidents did this behind closed doors. Maybe because he did it so publicly, he lit a fire under these NATO nations who aren't at the commitment and who actually might be able to. I'm not talking about the smaller NATO countries, but the ones who really should be there, like Italy and some of the other bigger nations. Norway has billions in oil money. Why are they not paying as much? And they're just a country or two away from Russia.
No, I think all of those are entirely valid questions. I think it is true. I've worked in administrations where this issue has constantly been raised with very little satisfaction. President Trump may have had to break some china here to finally get the Europeans to understand that the era when America could bear most of the burdens and pay most of the costs of the alliance are no longer sustainable. The American people simply will not stand for it. So something's got to change, and thankfully it looks like it is.
Jens Stoltenberg, I noticed, of course, the chief of NATO there said the allies heard President Trump's message, which had clear impact. This whole thing started off very tense. And now you've got Stoltenberg saying this. I think that is certainly significant. The key issue, though, was supposed to be, at least in one of these meetings, Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin of Russia, who had directed Russian militants to bite off a huge chunk of Ukrainian territory, the Crimea region, and outright took it. That was supposed to be a focus, but President Trump, during that particular meeting, kept talking about well, you all should be paying more. Was that a missed opportunity, considering that is really the biggest violation of NATO rules?
Yeah, I do think that there's got to continue to be a focus on Ukraine, but it is important to note that in the NATO communique, it was a very blunt, tough statement about the unacceptability of Russian aggression in Ukraine and Crimea, and that the alliance is going to respond to that and is responding to it on the ground in terms of dramatically increased capabilities, both this year and in the out years, particularly in defense of those most vulnerable countries in the Baltics and Poland.
Monday, the president meets with Vladimir Putin. What can we expect, and what do you think is one of, if not the most important thing? Pick out one thing, John, that the president must say, and whether you think he will.
Well, I think, listen, domestically, all eyes are going to be on what does the president do on the election meddling issue. Let's set that aside. I think that the one place where there may be the most ground for some kind of common interest and cooperation going forward could be the tragedy of Syria. That the United States and Russia both hopefully have an increased interest in trying to calm things down in Syria. The United States wants Russian help in beginning to get the Iranians out of Syria to prevent that land bridge across the Mediterranean that could ignite a major war between Israel and Iran. I think neither the United States nor Russia want to see that kind of outcome. So one can hope that they can have some meetings of the minds on Syria. I'll be watching for that.
I think everybody will indeed. John, thank you very much.